All right. We are live, and this is another episode of Engaging Personalities. My name is Anders Belanger, and I am the founder and CEO of Engagify, and we strive to make teams and events more engaging. And if you're looking to create engagement, especially on social media, you are in the right place. I have a special guest coming on who is an author of Digital First Leadership, among some other books, as well as he has a company called Bliss Consulting, and it's about social selling. It's about executive digital presence, and we're going to get into all of that. So I'm going to bring on, please welcome to the program, Mr. Richard Bliss. Richard, thanks for coming on.
Anders, it is a pleasure to be here. You know, the last time you and I saw each other, it was in person, and that seems so long ago, and I certainly miss it. So thank you for having me back.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, you're right. It is a long time, and just kind of how we know each other. You were working to help executives at a company that I was also working with to cultivate that digital presence. And so, just before we kind of get into what you're all about and what you do, Richard, can you tell me a little bit about how you kind of came into this world of social media consulting and all of that kind of stuff?
Sure. My background is marketing. I was an executive for marketing for a variety of software companies over the years, many years. And, in tech, there's always transition periods. And several years ago, it's now been a decade actually ago, this year, I found myself in transition, and I decided I needed to completely reinvent myself from being a marketing executive, because blogging, podcasting, social media, it was all coming. It had been around, but it was all starting to enter into the business world. And so I wrote a book, started a podcast, taught myself how to learn social media as an executive, and then came to realize that there are hangups, friction points, things that prevent executives like myself from taking those next steps of becoming proficient. Because I published the book 10 years ago, a company reached out to me, saw that I had published, needed somebody to work with their executives to do some social media coaching, writing, blogging on Forbes, things like that. And they asked if I'd be interested. And I got to tell you, I had never done that before, but because I put myself out there, somebody saw it, took me up on it. And the next thing you know, I had a new career of helping senior leadership, particularly here in Silicon Valley, learn how to have an online presence. I did that for many years. And then about about 2.5 years ago, found myself in a transition period and decided to do it on my own.
So that's a great story. I love the story of reinvention, because I'm a little bit on that same trajectory as well too, Richard. So going from the trade shows to, now taking those engagement skills, codifying them and teaching, sales teams and frontline teams to create that prospect and customer engagement. So I kind of feel like we're fighting the same fight from different angles. So this is what I feel, there's this great alignment. Now, you talked about, teaching, executives. I think I read somewhere, it might've been in some of the research I was doing before we did this, it was something about, that CEOs or leadership in general, leaders are almost laggards when it comes to social media adoption. Is that the case?
Absolutely. And I'm in Silicon Valley, and what's shocking is that a lot of it has to do with tech leaders. You would think that tech leaders would be out in front. And a few years ago, when they asked who are the most active social executives, it was no surprise that it was all the heads of social media companies. But today we're starting to see that shift. There's been several elements that have shifted. Obviously, COVID, this digital and hybrid environment we're in, but there were other things that caused it. One was people starting to see the power of social media that you could use as a leader for whatever way you fell on the political spectrum, for good or bad, how you could start using those tools. And so it became easier for me to work with leaders to help them understand not the why, but the how. Before it used to be why. Why should I be on there? It's a waste of time. There's 3 myths, Anders, when it comes to social media and executive. There's 3 myths. I don't have the time. It's all self-promotional, and I don't have anything to share. And it was a matter of breaking down those 3 myths. Now, it's gotten easier because they see the why. It's become so obvious, particularly with COVID. They don't get to interact with their employees. They can't walk the halls. They can't see them in the lunchroom. They can't be in front of them on stage. And so the why is no longer the challenge. Now it's the how. And that's what I now teach executives and salespeople. How do I have a presence online?
I got a quick question I'm going to pop up here, if it's all right. Here it says, Talia says, what would you say is a great strategy for someone who has an hour a day to spend on social media?
That's great, because oftentimes I recommend for executives who are just starting off to apply 7 minutes a day or 30 minutes a week. So an hour, if you've got an hour a day, here's what you do with that hour. And you can even cut it down to 30 minutes. And that is, I focus on LinkedIn. And the reason I focus on LinkedIn is because while social media is pervasive everywhere, not everyone has social media accounts on each platform. But if you're in business, we all have a LinkedIn account. So start number one, pick your platform, and I'm going to recommend LinkedIn. That's where we are now. Next, number two is to realize that LinkedIn does not function like any other social media platform. It's not like Twitter. It's not like Instagram. It's not like TikTok. It's not like Facebook. And what that means is that your behavior on those platforms will actually sabotage your efforts and activity on LinkedIn. We can get into that, but I'm going to answer the question for Talia, and that is the one thing you should be doing on LinkedIn every day is picking 3 people and choosing to comment on their posts or their comments. And I don't just mean, I agree, congratulations. This is what I mean. We are trained by Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, that when we leave a comment, we're talking to the author. That is not Facebook. That is not LinkedIn. When you leave a comment, you're talking to your network. Go to your LinkedIn profile, look through your feed, and see how many of the posts that you're seeing are actually comments or likes from your network, and not because they created original content. So the thing you should be doing is picking 3 people, preferably outside your network, and leaving an insightful comment that adds to the conversation. If you do that 3 times a week, the number of people looking at your personal LinkedIn profile will grow by 100 to 300% in the first week, simply because you left 3 comments 3 times on 3 different people during the week. That's all you have to do. 3 times, 3 days. So 9 comments, and you'll see 100% growth in the number of people looking at your profile.
Wow. I hope everyone just got that, because that's a real nugget of gold that you've just shared with us, Richard. And I know I'm going to put that into my own, almost like a checklist weekly to make sure I do that. And it doesn't matter if you do 9 in one day. Is that okay? Is it better spreading it out?
It's better spreading that out. Now, if you have time to do 9 in one day, that's great. But here's a couple of reasons why it's better spreading it out. LinkedIn treats your new connections differently than it treats all your connections. For example, when you put something, Anders, when you put something on LinkedIn, it only goes to about 10% of your network. It doesn't go to everybody.
Yeah.
And you have what, how many followers you got? About 4,000, 5,000 followers? I can't remember.
Yeah, 5,300, something like that. Yeah.
Yep. So that means about 500 people are going to see your post. That's it. When you put a post go live on LinkedIn. Now, that's the good news, that only 10%. The bad news is if you include a link or you click the share button, if you include a link, that number is generally cut in half. Let me repeat what I did. An
external link. Is that what you mean?
If you share an external link, your number of views of people who will see your original post is cut in half, from 50 to 80%. If you click the share button, that's cut by 99%. Now, this is what I mean by your activity and sabotage. We're taught that, hey, that's great, I'm going to share that with my network. And you hit that share button, LinkedIn simply sees you duplicating content and not adding any value, and it will shut that down and shadow that post from 99% of your network. And so what you want to do then is to actually create content where you're commenting and engaging. And this is why you don't want to do it all in one day, because for the first 7 days after you make a connection with a new person, let's suppose Talia, who just asked the question, let's suppose I reached out and we connected. For the next 7 days, anything I post on LinkedIn is going to show up in her feed. Anything she posts on LinkedIn is going to show up in my feed, likes, comments, and posts. But if we don't engage with each other's comments, though, or engagement, after a week, LinkedIn drops our relationship back down into the level of mediocrity that makes up the vast majority of our relationships on social media. So you have 1 week to get people's attention, which means you don't want to do all those comments in one day, because you've got this 7-day rolling window of opportunity with every new person that you come into contact with.
Wow. Thank you. This is all, it's like I'm learning, I'm interviewing you and I'm just, I need to be taking notes. Thank goodness this is being recorded. I can play this back after. So so these are some of the things that you're teaching, leaders to do.
Yep.
And obviously it needs to be done. You said, we talked about the why. There's finally seeing the why, right? And there was this kind of, I think there was this, it doesn't matter if I do it kind of thing, or what are the results? And I think that's showing to be being proven now, right? Like that.
It is, but even still, one of the challenges that executives face, because I deal with two groups. I deal with salespeople in organizations, sales teams, helping them understand how to do social selling and team selling. And I deal with executives, helping them understand how to build an influence, a voice, authentic voice. And it can be challenging for them, especially for the executives and even for the salespeople. What do I say? And who really cares? And so what they resort to is just talking about their product. And unfortunately, I mean, you've built a career working at trade shows. And one of the things, I have seen you in action so many times. And the one thing you do is you don't talk about the product. You weave it into the narrative about how it solves problems and how it makes it. And then you weave your incredible magic and everything into a narrative. But you don't just say, hey, step over here. I'm going to tell you about, and I won't name any companies that you've worked for. Let me tell you about this product. Let me tell you about this. Nobody's going to even stop. But as you're talking about the importance of security and all these type of things, you're weaving that narrative in. It's the exact same thing online. Is it so often people resort to simply, I don't know what to say, so I'm just going to talk about our latest product announcement. Well, I don't know about you, but my life is full of news feeds, and I don't need one of my contacts just shoving more news at me about their product announcements. And so getting them to change that narrative in their head and realizing, if you're going to share something, I want to know why. I want to know what's in your head, why you think that's important to me. I don't want to know about the product. I don't want some marketing pitch. And so that's the big change I get salespeople and executives to work on, that big why, or excuse me, in that case, it's what should I be sharing?
Yeah. And that makes me think too, when I do trade shows, I try to use the magic or the routine that I've created to communicate the benefits like a story. It's kind of like telling a story. What is that part of what you help companies with as well? As it with the sales teams and the executives, is kind of that storytelling in digital?
It is. It is, because again, and I talk about it in my book about this tug of war, and I've posted about it and shared. There's this tug of war, digital first leadership. It came out the month of May. The Audible will be out here in about a week or two. I'm very excited about that. But in the book, we talk about this tug of war that happens inside of companies. The marketing team is often seen as being tasked with social media, but the marketing team has a very different mission statement. Their job is to build brand awareness and to push out the news of the company. That's their job in marketing. Sales, they've got a very different role, and their job with what they want to do with social media is actually open doors to close business, which is a very different mission statement than the marketing team. The marketing team wants to help them do that, but it's got a bigger, longer cycle in that process. And then your executives are in a position where they're trying to wield influence, to show vision, to show leadership, to actually engage with prospects, customers, and employees. These three entities are headed in opposite directions when it comes to social media, because they see the term social media. The salespeople think, well, that's marketing's role. Marketing sees social media and says, well, our job is not to help executives post something on LinkedIn about their personal life. And executives are like, well, I should just be talking about the company. What should I mean, they're all kind of at odds with each other. And what we do is we step in and say, look, executive, you're the single biggest voice of the company. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because in this digital world, and I call it digital first leadership, I have 10 people who work for me in my organization at Bliss Point. Half of them I've never met. Half of the people I hired, I have never met in person. Okay. I hired them, I pay them, they work for me, I'm on a call with them, and yet I've never met them in person. And that's what the new hybrid work environment. I got to tell you, Anders, the adjustment that's going to be made in the work environment over the next several years because of COVID is not the employees trying to figure out how to do their job from home. It's leaders figuring out how to be effective as leaders without having physical proximity as a crutch to help them be better leaders. I mean, think about parenting. I can pretty much get my kid to do anything as long as I'm standing in the room over them, right?
Yeah.
Leaders today are like, no, you don't get to walk to their desk. You don't get to see them you don't get to have a company meeting where you're standing at, no, you have to engage with them in a digital first environment and figure out that leadership. And that's really, really challenging to a lot of leaders who they barely have a LinkedIn profile. They don't know what to do. And they don't know how to ask their kids. So that's the challenge.
Right. As consultants. Yeah. Now you mentioned something earlier, and I think this really ties in with the executives is, that authentic voice, right? Like knowing what to say is one thing, right? To put out there, like, people trying to go, what do I post, right? But then posting something that is going to convey who they are and help foster culture, and that sort of thing. Do you want to speak to that? Like, because I find that authenticity piece, I see it everywhere. We talk about it in our trainings too, in terms of, virtual presence and that sort of thing. Why is that so important, and how can people foster that authenticity? Oh, and not foster, but you know what I mean?
But but we're missing the physical feedback, right? And that you live in having again seen you in person, you feed off of the reaction of the crowd, and you bring them in. Hey, everybody come in a little closer. Everybody, I mean, how many times have I heard you say that? Everybody come in a little closer. That physical feedback that we're getting, and they're just watching your hands and they're just focused on you. We don't have that element now. And so leaders are having to step in and say, okay, how do I now find a way of engaging and connecting with my audience? Authenticity through the digital environment is so difficult, especially when we see Instagram influencers who are who are faking it. And we've seen the famous ones where during COVID, the one in LA, I think, where she got out of her Mercedes, walked up, took a hammer in her hand from a construction worker, got the Instagram shot, and then climbed back in her Mercedes. And that's not authentic behavior. That's not what we're talking. And they'll see through that. Candor, vulnerability, empathy. These are things that create authenticity. But these are things that most leaders are not comfortable sharing when they lose control of the narrative. They can share it on an intimate one-on-one team, employee meeting, or in a small team gathering, or maybe in front of an all hands where it's a closed environment. But to put it out on social, to be vulnerable, empathetic, and candor becomes very daunting because there's no safety net. There's no marketing team that's filtering the content.
And I think too, Richard, there is this kind of, as leaders, there's this like armor that is put on because they must show strength. And what you're saying people could perceive that as being like, oh, that sounds weak, right? And yet that human piece, which is so missing, and that where everyone's trying to rehumanize everything these days, that's where that seems to really come into being very important.
It does. And I've worked with some great executives, and it's when they have stepped out and shown a little bit of that vulnerability where it's been returned in overwhelming support. I had one executive who went through kind of a transition in their career, and they needed to figure out where they wanted to go next. And so I sat down with them and said, look, the whole spend more time with my family approach, that's exactly what's going on here. And we need to tell them why you need to spend more time with your family. And so we crafted a post for this executive that they came up and realized that their work-life balance had become way out of whack. They were on planes all over the world. This was pre-COVID, obviously. They were on planes all over the world. They were on 24/7. They didn't have an off switch. And so we created a post that they put out on social media that talked about their failure in being able to create this balance and how it caused them to suffer personally, and how it caused their relationship to suffer a little bit. Now, it wasn't a marriage counseling type thing, but they admitted that this was out of whack. And so then over the next 6 to 8 months, we carefully covered the things that they were doing to get that balance back. I mean, that's incredible vulnerability and candor that then has paid off for that individual, where now, I mean, they generate sometimes 100 to 200,000 views on a single post on LinkedIn. And a lot of it has to do because they've built the audience, and that trust factor is there, that there's an authenticity there.
And that relatability, right? You talk about empathy being part of that authenticity. When people can empathize with someone in that position, I mean, then that bonds them and creates them and increase that following and that kind of piece. All right, cool. Let me switch gears for a second, because this is something that we've been kind of playing with too. So I want to talk a little bit about social selling and how you define that, because there are kind of, when I've talked with companies, I don't know if people exactly know, right? Some of them think it's just prospecting online, or some of them think it's, you know what I mean? And then our take is we've been helping people in the virtual engagement, so them selling in a virtual meeting to have that piece of social selling. How do you help sales teams on the social selling thing, and just kind of speak to that, if you would?
One, as we point out, the obvious terrible practice that we're seeing right now and I had it happen this morning. A connection request came in and I accepted it, and there's the sales pitch. And I'm just like, no, that is not going to work. So social selling, what we do is we teach people to give before they ask. And an ask might be, I'm asking for a connection request. I'm asking for a meeting. I'm asking for information about your company. I'm asking. And so instead, give. And the way you give is, did you like or comment on that person's content before you engaged with them? Did you find a way to give them attention, give them validation, give them advice, give them insight, give them opportunity? What did you do to give to them? And this is what we teach salespeople, is when it comes to social selling, find ways to give to the environment rather than take away. The second thing then is to take your time and understand that you have to build trust into this relationship. And when it comes to LinkedIn and social selling, it comes through, the first time I engage with you should not be you asking me for something. So build up some trust. Share content that is interesting to your audience, not interesting to you. And I had a call with a team this past week where their tactic was to reach out and do all of these connections and then try to engage with their content after the connection. I was like, no, you got it backwards. Yeah. Engage with their connections and content first. Had a gentleman reach out to me to connect. I would have traditionally just said flat out no. It had some signs. I was like, he's going to try to sell me something. But he had liked and commented on a couple of pieces of my content beforehand. And so I was like, yeah, all right. He gave. I'm going to give back. I'm going to let him go until he violates this trust. And so when it comes to social selling, we teach them how to find ways to do that. Here's an interesting technique that I do teach. Let's suppose your prospect is not that active on LinkedIn. Okay. So what you do instead, find something they've been mentioned in the news or something they've posted. Now go create your own post and you tag them in the post. But you got to be really careful. Let's use you for an example. Let's suppose I saw one of your posts and we're not connected and you're a prospect of mine. You don't know me, but I'm trying to get in the door. So I'm going to go write a post on LinkedIn, and this is what it's going to say. I saw an incredibly interesting post shared by Anders. I'm going to tag you. And in the post, he talked about these issues. I'd like to address those issues because I found them fascinating. And then you address it, you address it, you address it, you address it. And I'm really grateful that I saw that post because it's really helped me be better at my job, my company, or whatever. Now, that post is directed supposedly at my network. Not really. That post is
tagged.
Actually, you got tagged, but I'm not talking to you, and nor am I talking about you. I'm talking about your concept that you shared. So I'm using you as a reference point. But here's what happens on the other side of that equation. You get notified that Richard Bliss mentioned you in a post. What's
Oh,
the first thing you ask yourself?
Who's Richard Bliss?
That's number one. And number two is?
What did he say?
Exactly. You click the button and suddenly you see me talking not about you, but about this great thing you shared that I am now sharing with my network.
Mm-hmm.
I have taught this to salespeople, this technique. And what happens then is I will get emails from these salespeople. One guy said, I tried that technique. I mentioned a prospect in a post about something he had said and then talked about what he had said and about how I was talking to my network about it. He said, in one day, the prospect reached out to him and asked for a connection and a follow-up call because what he found him talking about was so fascinating.
That's beautiful.
The prospect did not know that they were being targeted.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but the idea here is that make it appear that you're talking to your network and sharing great insights. You really only care if one person saw that post. Yeah. And that's, in this case, you. Did you see me talking about the great Now, if I reach out to you, you're like, oh, I know who that guy is.
Yeah. Well, in the law of reciprocity, too, of the fact that they've given first, you just kind of feel, and in this case, I wouldn't even feel obligated. I'd be like, yeah, you know what I mean?
Right.
He likes what I'm talking about already. So yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. Okay. So yeah, so that's a great technique for salespeople in terms of getting noticed without being like, look at me, right? Like it's that, yeah.
I'm going to sell you something. Again, it's that ask. Am I asking for, even if it's minor, just asking for a connection request is still an ask. And the last thing we want to do is ask anything of a prospect because it tips the balance uneven, right? Yeah. Because we are literally we now owe them. If they accept our connection request, we actually owe them now. And then we just simply violate that by piling on. But when you give, you've tipped the balance in your favor. And now human nature is, as you just said it, reciprocity is that I want to balance that out. Now, how do I balance that out? Oh, I'll let them have that connection request or I'll respond. Another little story is that one of the things I do for my team, we do a lot of writing and helping coach executives and salespeople on writing. And I have my team does a lot of writing. All of them aspire to be some kind of author of something. So I sat down with one of my team members and said, what's preventing you from being an author? Well, this, and this. So I said, okay, you're going to write a book and we are going to publish it. Bliss Point's going to publish it. And the team is going to act as your editors. And I need from you by Monday, this morning, she said, oh, I need to send you what the book's about. I said, no, I need you to send me the process you're going to use to get the book done. I don't care what's in it. So then she did that. My whole team now is helping her get to this dream in a 2-week period. And then the other thing is that she identified some authors that she really wants to engage with. So I reached out to one of them on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'd like to connect. This author had commented on one of my posts, and I didn't know who they were at the time, but my employee freaked out. Oh my gosh, you can't believe who just commented on your post. I reached out and said, thank you for commenting on my post. My team idolizes some of the work that you put out, and I'd love to be able to connect because you've been such an inspiration to my team. Well, do you think they accepted my connection request? Absolutely. Not only did they accept my connection request, they then sent me a message back saying, you just made my day. That was awesome. And now I've instructed my employee to reach out to them saying, hey, my boss, Richard Bliss, engaged with you. I was wondering if I could ask you a single question because I'm publishing this book. You know, what piece of advice would you give to an aspiring writer? Yeah. That's social selling in a way that you're selling value to each other and you're making sure that relationship stays in balance.
Nice. And just talking about this book thing too, we've had this conversation.
We have
years ago when we met, you challenged me to write a book.
I did.
To write a book. And so right now I'm editing my book. So, I will send you a copy when it happens because you did. And if you're a great supporter of authors. So yeah.
Well, if you want my team to take a look at it, you send it over and my team will give you feedback on it.
Okay.
And so we'd love to, and I'm excited to see your book come out because yes, you and I had a conversation. It was off stage. It was offline. We were it was a casual, and you talked about this aspiration you had for a book. Yeah. And I did. I challenged you to ask you what was preventing you from taking the next step to do that.
And you challenged me a little bit later on too through LinkedIn. I get a few like little messages once in a while. How's that book coming? And I'd be like, you know, and right. then it started. But yeah, but I appreciate you staying on me, because obviously you've written books and seen the value in that, and of course, you know, how that can position expertise and everything that comes along with that. So again,
it does.
I thank you for that. Just before we end here, Rich, I'm having a great time, by the way, and thank you so much. Like this is high value content here that you're sharing.
Well, should we tell the audience that you reached out, I reached out and said, hey, we should get together. You're like, and then you reached out like, yeah. And so then I'm like, okay, Monday morning, I'm gonna have a call with Anders. We're gonna catch up. And the next thing I know, I'm on a StreamYard, and you're like, okay, get ready. It's going to go live. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're just chatting. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I feel like I'm going to go back and look at the messages. I thought I made it clear, but maybe, you know, I was just thinking one thing, and you know how it is. But anyways, but I think
I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, very, very fruitful chat that we're having, I think. You know, and one of the other things that I want to say, and maybe you have some content on this, talking about how much of your network actually sees your posts. That makes sense, because I've been trying to put more videos out, that sort of thing. And then I'll be like, put out what I think is a pretty good video. And then it's just like, man, my crappier videos a year ago used to do, and I know they changed the algorithm, but how can we stand out? How can we get noticed, you know, on LinkedIn?
Number one, stop putting out videos on LinkedIn.
Really?
They're the worst performing content on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Okay. Now I'm not telling you to stop making videos, but stop putting videos on LinkedIn. So here's what, and I have watched you, and I have hesitated to give advice because
bring it, do it. I want it. I need it. Give it to me.
Human behavior is, so the LinkedIn algorithm monitors how long people spend on your content, on your post.
Right.
And that is then given. So there's a bunch of scores. When somebody comments on your post, you get a certain number of points. When somebody likes your post, you get a certain number of points. Comments are worth more than twice as much value than a like. So you want comments. Mm-hmm. The challenge though is that usually on a post, a video is going to cause people to look at it. It has to be, they have to watch it for 3 to 4 seconds for it to be, 3 seconds for it to be considered a view. But most people are trained by all of the other platforms to click like and move on. They don't, and then they're very seldom going to stay and watch the entire video and then comment.
Yeah.
So what you want to do, here's what you want to do. And so this is what you want to do. One, there are 1,300 characters that you can use in a post on LinkedIn. 1,300, not 1,300 words, 1,300 characters. You need to use all of those. That's number one. Get people to stay. So I'm looking at, this one has 4 lines. I'm looking at another one right now, 3 lines. So nobody's spending any time on your post. That's called dwell time.
Now that, and we're talking about those, what did you say? 1,300 characters in any post we're talking, or are you saying in a video post specifically?
I'm going to talk about your post should have as many words in it as possible.
Okay.
And break it up with spaces too. Don't make it a dense, because people on their mobile devices can't read it if it's all one big block.
Yeah.
So use those 1,300 characters. LinkedIn monitors and watches to see how long people spend reading your post. And that's an amplifier to your popularity. Number 2, if you're going to include a video, 100% of the time include subtitles, which I think you do.
Yeah.
Okay. But, the other thing is, don't add a link to somewhere other than you. Don't add a YouTube link. If you put a YouTube link, they'll reduce your views by 85%.
Yeah, I heard that, and that's why I thought natively, you know, putting the video into LinkedIn was better.
So here's what I would recommend you try: is try putting up a post without the video, just telling people what it is, and then try the same post with the video. And you'll discover that the post without the video will probably get 3 to 4 times more views, simply because there's no video. But the easiest thing, because your videos are very engaging. The easiest thing is I'm looking at your right now, and that would be to add the words. So I'm looking at a week ago, you had the show on, right? You got 8 comments, which is great, 8 likes, but you only had 4 lines of text.
Of what the show is about. Yeah. I'm a lazy writer, apparently. Yeah. Okay.
And LinkedIn is not going to reward you for laziness.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. We had a client who put out a video, but they had shared it from the corporate page. So also clicking the share button is going to get you almost no coverage. I'm looking at, you've clicked the share button a couple of times, and there are ways around that. In my training, I talk about how to share something more effectively than clicking the share button. But what you'll want to do is write up all of those words. Make sure you use you have to use 3 hashtags.
Okay.
LinkedIn is now changing the algorithm to focus on hashtags. So you need 3 hashtags, not any more or less. 3 hashtags, just 3. And then also when it comes to tagging people, if you tag someone and they don't respond, you'll get a demerit. It'll demote your post. If you tag someone and they do respond, you'll get rewarded. So when it comes to tagging people, be very careful that you're not tagging people who aren't engaging or responding.
Yeah.
So to use the example of the person, he did similar to what you did. He threw up a video. It was actually a shared video of himself, and he put a couple of words. He got 6 likes and 200 views. 4 days later, I said, his name's Matt. I said, Matt, we're going to repost this. Exact same post, but this time native video with the subtitles. But now you're going to write out 1,300 characters of text. And he said, well, people are going to see me put out the same post 2 times in a row. I said, don't worry. Nobody saw the first post. He took us up on it, made the post go live. It did have a video with the subtitles, but it had 1,300 words of character. And he told everybody what was in the post. He got in 8 hours 4,500 views in 8 hours after the post went live, simply because he made that simple change.
Yeah.
That's all it took.
Now, what about the actual content of what you say in that 1,300? Not good. It's better about what is it about? And then they want to see what it is about, right?
So many of us who we don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want it, but people are in a hurry. They're on their mobile devices, and it's like a trailer in a movie. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, Star Wars, if it was just a long time ago in a galaxy far away, that's the trailer. Yeah. It'd be like, nah, I don't think I'm seeing that one. They want to know what you're asking them to commit to. If they're on their mobile device, do I stay and watch this? And remember, 3 seconds on a mobile device is an incredibly large amount of time for somebody to sit there to try to figure out what this is about. Don't make them figure it out. Tell them. And they'll be like, oh, that sounds really interesting. I think I'll watch. And it's the complete opposite of what we've been trained on everything else. This is why, again, the marketing department is struggling, because they're giving content to the salespeople and the salespeople are using it and it's not working, is because you got to flip it around. You should give your sales pitch and your summary in the first 2 lines. And then you build the case study of why to support that with decreasing importance as you go down. Because
just like a newspaper article, right? Just like a headline. And then,
But everybody writes the exact opposite. You know, the other day I was listening to this guy and he had something really interesting to say. And so here's what I thought. And I thought I would share it with all of you. No, just share it. Stop talking. Yeah. And that's why your videos, people aren't taking the time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're visually appealing, but you don't want them to be visually engaged. You want them to be emotionally and intellectually engaged, and you need them to stop and read, and then they'll comment. And it's the comments that are preventing your videos and your posts from reaching higher levels, because you're not getting any comments. And you're not getting comments because you're not giving them anything to comment on.
Yeah.
If you go back through your posts and you'll look at the posts that performed the best, you will see there's a direct correlation between how many comments did I get and how well I did. I would challenge you, because you got great videos, but I would challenge you to do a post of 1,300 characters with no video.
Yeah.
Let me give you one more tip.
Okay.
You can include a link, but just not at the time of posting.
And in the comments? Link in the comments?
You can do it in the comments, and that's how we used to do it. But what you do instead is you write up your post, text only. If you'd like to watch the full video, here's the link. Don't put the link in there. Hit post, make it go live. Then hit the edit button, go back in and drop the link in.
That's a little workaround then.
The algorithm at the time you hit post scans looking for that external link. It does not see it. A second later, you go back and edit and drop the post. The algorithm does not come back to check your edit.
Wow.
So that allows you to drop the link in so that if people want to click on it and go see it, they can. So videos are the worst performing. Images are the second worst performing. And text only is the absolute best performing on LinkedIn. So adding pictures will also reduce the number of views you get. And not because of the algorithm. It's because of human nature. We are trained to see a picture, double tap, move on. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they all teach us that. Show support, move on. It's not the likes, though, that LinkedIn's looking for. It's the conversations. So when you add a picture, it actually tends to decrease the amount of conversation that's happening on LinkedIn because people are just clicking like and moving on.
Right.
So I would challenge you over this next week to try posts without any video or any pictures and see what happens with your content, and then fill it up because you've got great content. Tell us what's in the book. Tell us, some things to think about. You can't really show a magic trick. I've been practicing my magic tricks. How am I doing? Am I doing okay?
Oh, not bad, not bad.
I got to find the camera. All right. Couldn't
Virtual magic can be tricky too. So there you go.
I keep them for the kids in our team. I got a lot of mothers, and so the kids are always on camera. So we're always practicing. Where's the camera? I'm always practicing how I do that. So the kids are like, how do you do that? Been learning from you.
There we go. Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Richard, for dropping all this wisdom, LinkedIn wisdom with everyone here. And I feel like I'm going to get a bill from you after this call because I got some good stuff here. So thank you so much. I hope to see you in person sometime on the show floor if you're
soon. When your post goes live, because I've challenged you this week, there's a word that we believe here at Bliss Point. We believe it with our clients. We believe it with our employees. It's the word empower. Yeah. And empowerment comes through challenging and accountability and helping people support. And so when your post goes live, because I've challenged you to try this week, let me know. And I will share it with my team and we will go out and engage, because here's the last secret. And that is, if you can get 10 comments on a post within the first hour, the LinkedIn algorithm will guarantee that post will be viewed by a minimum of 1,000 people within the first 24 hours. Wow. Minimum. So when you're ready to practice, let me know and my team will step in and give you that little boost. And I bet you we can get you up into the 2,000 to 3,000 views this week with a single post simply by making these simple changes. So there you go. There's the last nugget I'm going to share with you.
Amazing. All right. Just before I end, I should almost have a banner up here, but it's blisspoint.com is the website.
What is my website?
Oh, Bliss Court. No, yeah.
No, blisspointconsult.com is the website. Okay. Or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Well, let's just do that. Richard Bliss, you got lots of followers.
Look me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay, good. Hey, again, thanks so much, Richard. Thank you everyone for watching. Hey, do comment on this content that Richard dropped. If there's something we learned here, is that we have to be commenting, because that's what counts. So, all right. Thanks, Richard. Take care.
Thank you.